Hello and welcome to another SEQTEK podcast. I'm Kenn Williamson. Again, Matt is out in new fatherhood land, and so we wish him the best here. But I'm excited to bring on a guest that we've had before again to talk about a lot of the things that we've been mentioning over the last few episodes, AI, and but really coming at it from more of a business side of things now. So let's welcome to the podcast Brent Fields, our president at SEQTEK. Hello, Brent. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing well. So we finally have a break from the cold weather here, and spring sports are starting up again. I understand that you're already back in the thick of it with your kids.
Yep. Yeah, we had multiple basketball games canceled, and everything kind of got backed up as far as really since the first of the year, right? Like it was everybody kind of got sick right after the first of the year, and then there was snow, and then ice, and then and so yeah, even from the business world, it was like I had so many people saying, "Well, we were ready to start this project, but such and such was sick or such and such was out, but now the weather." So it's kind of a weird start to the year, but everything's back on track and going now. So
Yeah. Well, let's just dive into it. So one of the first things I wanted to ask you about was that, we hear about AI all the time. Matt and I brought up some articles about AI, and just it really feels like AI fever right now. What I wanted to ask you about is you have an opportunity to talk to a lot of current clients, a lot of prospective clients. How often does AI come up in those conversations, and what are people asking about AI right now?
yeah, so AI is kind of like the exciting thing to talk about, right? So it's you get board meetings that get it brought up, and you get all these different tech groups and tech uh, conferences, and AI is brought up at everything, and rightfully so. But the reality is AI reminds me of like the cloud 10 years ago, right? And so everybody, it was kind of cool, right? It was like the cool thing. We're moving to the cloud, and or if you're not in the cloud, we're getting ready to go to the cloud. And AI is kind of in that weird place right now. So, like I talked to a lot of C-level execs, and right now it's more of we want to do AI, and yes, we've got like Chat GPT and doing low-level task kind of things, but nobody's really trying to overly commit and be one of the what you would consider like early adopters, right? Um, but the reality is for the statistic out there, and it depends on which board you look at, but 4 out of 10 IT leaders actually consider their organizations ready for AI.
Wow, that only 4 out of 10.
Yeah, 4 out of 10.
Wow.
So naturally, you ask kind of why is
Yeah, what that was
why
going to
is
be my
that
follow up
right?
is why do these people not think that their company is ready for AI?
Yeah, so it's all about the data,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have clean data, then it's going to be garbage in, garbage out, right? And companies for years, and some companies forever, data has never really been a priority, nor has technology. So you look across the board and you see technology departments that have been understaffed, underfunded, underappreciated, right? And now you have this AI kind of buzzword in front of them, and they're nowhere near ready because the data is just all over the place. You have unstructured data, multiple forms of data coming in various ways. Anyways, long story short, most organizations are trying to get their data fixed, right, and get it in such a way that they can even attempt AI.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a really good point because, wanting AI and being able to implement it in any sort of way that makes sense is two very different things. So, I mean, it kind of leads me into what else I was hoping to talk to you about, which is that how do companies do that? How do companies get ready for AI? How do they manage their data? Um, what kind of things are you telling prospective clients and the clients we already have about what they can do to start to position themselves to get ready for these changes?
Yeah. So anytime you start talking about technology, AI, it could be, it doesn't really matter, right? But let's just take AI for example. Companies put AI or whatever that might be at the top of the board and say, all right, how do we get here? And what do we need to do to get going? The reality is the importance of it is people and then process and then technology in that order.
Yeah.
If your people are not in the mindset, if you don't have a culture, if you don't have people bought in to what you're doing, then it doesn't matter if it's AI or anything else. People are going to resist it. It's going to take longer, and you're going to feel yourself stuck in the mud all through the process. And so the easy answer is always data, right? Like, how do we get there? And it's okay, you got to clean the data. But really, if when I talk to somebody and they say, hey, how do we start getting there? Start involving your people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that is a great point, and I think it's something that you probably deal with a lot, which is that people want technology to drive the conversation, but really technology is a downstream consumer of these other things like having the right people in place, getting their buy-in in what we're trying to accomplish, and then building processes around those people first before we even start the technology conversation. So I think that is a great point to make. But okay, let's assume you have the people, you have them bought in, and you're starting to work on your data, whatever that may look like. We've been involved or I've been involved in another number of projects that have this exact problem, and it's really painful. And it seems like you start on this, you embark on this course to say, okay, I have the people bought in. We know that we need to do something. We understand that we need to do it. We're starting now to build processes around that and to start making technology changes to our system. But there's a big problem, which is that now, exactly like you said, we're stuck in the mire. We are losing momentum and we're running into all of these challenges. How do you navigate that? How do you manage that? And how do you communicate to your clients about what to do in that scenario?
Yeah, so if you find yourself stuck in the mud, right, then the one of the first things that you have to do is it goes back to this people aspect, right? You have got to go back to the people that are involved in this transformation, right? And then the people that are outside of that transformation, but it affects, right? And you've got to get people talking, you've got to get that collaboration, and you have to get people on the same page with the vision, right? So when people find themselves kind of stuck in the mud, it's because you have people that do not really have a clear vision on where they are all going as a collective unit, right? And so what happens is this department's going this way, this department's going this way, this clique is resisting because that's just what they want to do, right? So you have all these different units moving from each other as you're trying to pull it all back together. And so, but to answer your question, yeah, I mean, yeah, when you're stuck in the mud, forget about the technology at that point, right? Like you've got to corral the troops, you've got to get everybody back together, get the morale in order, and then realign the vision. If it's before the project or before the transformation, then you want to include stakeholders, get their buy-in, ask them their thoughts, their opinions, and then you want to involve them every step of the way. most companies don't do that. They say, here's a technology we like, let's go do that. And then they find themselves in the mud. But that clear vision before is key. But then when you find yourself in the middle, and there's always middle mud, if you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So there's the kickoff meeting.
Yeah, everybody's excited. We're rearing to go, and then the rubber meets the road, or in this case, the dirt road after the rain.
Yeah, think of it like a road trip. You know, you're excited, everybody's packed in, the kids are happy, everything's going good. You get 30 minutes into the drive, right? Hour into the drive, and just bogged down. Right, and kids are screaming, and are we there yet? Stop for gas, stop for bathroom breaks, right? Then you get all that, and then the ending is always fun because then you're there,
Yeah.
and then there's a celebration, and so you've got to go into any transformation process understanding that it's always going to be exciting in the beginning. You're going to have that lull, and then you're going to have that exciting end piece to what you're trying to accomplish within that, right? But once again, if an organization is cultivating a mindset of change and innovation, really shifting, like I like to tell people, if you can get your people to switch how they think, as far as it's not what you deliver, but it's how you deliver it. If you can switch that, then you can start to actually see innovation, change, adapting to what the vision is. But that goes for the leaders as well, because then you can't hold people to, here's what I'm going to metric you on, which is what you delivered, right? I would shift that, and I would say, change that to how they delivered that, how you delivered something. And when you do that, then you start to get in line more with the vision and the process of the company and where it's going.
Yeah, you can you talk a little bit about more about what you mean when you say what you deliver versus how you deliver? What's the distinction there?
Yeah, so when you say what you deliver, right, then now what we're doing is we're taking this thing you have to deliver by this deadline, right? And when you have that mindset, and you've seen it, we've all seen this 100 times. When you take that mindset, you start getting friction among the team. Start getting the blame game.
Oh yeah.
You start shortcutting things, right? All of these things happen because it's what I deliver by this time. And so you have all these variables that don't get the attention they need because they've got that what I deliver mindset. So when you shift it to how it's delivered, right? Obviously we don't walk into a room and just want to upset the table, right? And so when you focus on how we deliver something, it's smooth, it's process driven, stakeholder buy-in, right? That how, when that is above the what, then you actually get all those things that need the attention, they get that attention. But that's the big shift. I mean, when you have a what kind of environment, you get a lot of finger pointing, you get a lot of fighting and, conflicts and things like that. But when you shift it to that how, you kind of start to see a team come together and try to deliver an end product.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you could probably make, I'm not really a huge sports guy, but you could make a good sports analogy here for like a team too, which is, if you're focusing on, I need to score points versus we need to pass the ball, we need to, work together, we need to run the plays we've practiced, that feels like a much more how-driven game, right? If we're focusing on, let's do our fundamentals, let's work together, let's deliver, and then really the what is the natural end, is the natural progression of the how, right? If you're passing the ball right, if you're moving the ball down the court. I've kind of gotten into basketball because you were mentioning basketball that your kids are in right now, but if you're doing that right, then you're going to score points, right? And you're going to win games. Maybe not all the games, right? But if you're just really focused on let's score points. We have to score points. We need 25 points in the first quarter. We need 50 points by the end of the second quarter. Or I don't even know if they do quarters. And maybe it's halves in kid basketball. But anyway, I'm getting far afield. But I just think that like it's a subtle point, but I think that it's really, really important to what we're trying to accomplish, which is ultimately we want to get to a what, right? But it's how do you get there in the best way? And going back to what my original question was, how do you get out of the mud and the mire? If you're very, very focused on what you're trying to deliver and progress is slow and you don't exactly know what's going on, then everybody's going to get frustrated and morale is going to plummet, right? But if you're just focused on let's do these processes right. Let's keep communication up. Let's bring people in when they need to be brought in and do the right thing. So anyway, I didn't mean to belabor that point, but it just, to me, I think that's so key. And, but it is kind of a subtle distinction to think about. So I kind of want to shift gears and I want to talk a little bit about how to do the change management. Now, we're in consulting, so we have a bias, of course. And so I don't want to say, well, should companies do internal or should they bring in outside consultants for their digital transformation, change management, bringing in AI, whatever? Because obviously our answer is you got to have a consultant, right? But instead of asking the question that way, maybe you can give us some pros and cons of doing things internally versus doing things with an outside consultant that's going to be your technology partner as part of your change management, digital transformation, AI, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, 74% of companies have a partner in their digital transformation processes, right? And I think one of the key things to understand is, digital transformation is more of a mindset. It's more of a culture. And that's where I go back to, it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And so, 74% of companies have a partner. And the reason that number's so high, so that's 3 out of 4, right, is because when you have a mindset or you have a culture as a company that you're wanting to continually improve, right? Your continuous improvement is what we call it. But when you're constantly wanting to get better, then what you're going to do is you're going to go outside and say, hey, okay, there's thousands of applications out there, thousands of tools. Which ones do we want to use? Then if you're serious about that, then what happens is you find a partner and you say, hey, what do you think? You get a little bit of outside help, right? And it's not so much that you need to have a partner come in and take over the organization, right? It's more of having that outside consultant or that outside subject matter expert on saying, hey, are we doing this best practices? Can you help walk us through this process, right? And so, like anything in life, if you're serious about something, you're probably going to go out and get some help and bring that into what you're doing. And so, the biggest benefit is getting those fresh ideas, getting those different perspectives, gaining market knowledge on what people are seeing out in the market, what's worked, what's not worked. All of those things are the benefits of having a partner. It doesn't really matter who it is, but find a good partner. And then help them, let them help you kind of guide that journey along as you're going through it. Because if not, what happens is you end up just being in an echo chamber of your own company, right? I mean, if somebody says we are a, C#, .NET, SQL, Microsoft shop, like that's great, but everything you're going to hear in that echo chamber is going to be around those technologies typically, right? And then you would never have given thought to these other options that are out there. And maybe those options are good, maybe those options are not good for that environment, but you at least explore it, right? And so, those are the main benefits of partnering with any organization outside of your organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, it's like they always say, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. But maybe a counterpoint is that a lot of people have been burned by technology consulting groups. A lot of people have had bad experiences, you know, but how do you answer objections to companies that know they need help, right? They know they can't manage it on their own, but they're maybe a little bit nervous now because they've had bad experiences in the past. You know, we all know that there are some bad actors out there that you know just want to try to get in the door and kind of milk the project, milk the company dry, and then leave them holding the bag while they're on to the next deal. How you know, do you deal with that when you're talking to companies that are, you know, prospective clients, to say, you know, alleviate fears and answer those objections?
Yeah. So, one of the first things I always tell anybody is, would you like some references, right? Do you want to talk to some people that we work with?
Yeah.
I actually encourage that, because what happens is, it gives them an outlet to explore what it's been like to work with our organization, how that process has went. Because the reality is, yeah, there's a lot of people that have been burned by, consulting groups. But at the end of the day, 67% of digital transformation projects fail. So whether that was an internal move or an external move or whose fault it was, right? Even if you do it internally, 67% of digital transformation projects fail. So it's going to naturally be easy to say, well, that company did this, right? And so, but the reality is did those two organizations get together and align on the vision, create a plan, get stakeholder buy-in, right? And then start their journey together. So there's so many factors that play into that, but I completely understand. People who say, you know, we don't have a law firm partner because we got burned by a law firm partner. Okay, I get it. That's where you're at. It's the experiences you've had, and happy to answer any questions around that. But at the end of the day, we're all human, so I can understand it. But I would encourage them to go back and look at, maybe the group wasn't great. Maybe they were really a group that wasn't well organized. But the reality is that both of those organizations have to be aligned with what they're doing externally and internally for it to be a success.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a great point. I was kind of kind of thinking while you were talking about, is there the flip side to that where, the digital transformation project failed and you blame the outside consultant, but it maybe was part of, like, what should a company be, what kind of questions should they be asking themselves after a failed digital transformation, in order to make sure, because it's my thought that we're all going to have to go through this. Every company out there is going to have to go through this digital transformation. We're living in a digital world now. It's going to become very, very difficult to be doing on paper, manual processes where everybody else that you're working with wants to integrate with your API. They want to talk computer to computer, and have the business process pretty codified in that interaction. What would you say to a company that's like come to you and said, "Oh, well, our digital transformation project failed." What would you tell them to look at to see what caused that? And maybe they are blaming an outside consultant, but there's probably plenty to go around. What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say any digital transformation project that has failed, I would tell them to go back and look at, did you clearly outline a vision, right? Did you outline a vision, and then did you properly articulate that to all of your stakeholders? And did you get their buy-in? Did you involve them, right? From there, did you create a project plan? Did you really make sure that you were solving the right problem and not just the problem you think it was? Did you navigate that process? Did you, before you did anything, did you go ahead and look at, here are potential roadblocks that we will come into? Because anything in life, you're going to have roadblocks, right? So then you got to look at, here's the risk, here's the roadblocks that will probably come up or could come up, right? And then what do you do when those do happen, right? So that's where it goes back to, okay, if you had that vision and you had the stakeholder buy-in and you had the roadblocks known, and you also had the contingency plans for those roadblocks if they arise, right? Then you're limiting your rate of failure by X amount. I don't really, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I would encourage somebody to go back and look at those things, but I would say chances are they were probably missing those things.
Yeah. So you've mentioned vision a number of times, and I think maybe vision is something that means different thing to different people. And so can you talk a little bit about what you mean when you say vision in the context of we're setting up a digital transformation project. We have this vision. We want to communicate this vision to all of the principal stakeholders and the team members that are going to be doing this. What do you mean when you say vision?
So let's say we wanted to build a fence, okay? So if we wanted to build a fence, one thing we would have to do is take a look at who it's going to affect, right? And we also have to look at why we're building a fence, okay? So if the vision is to build a fence, then that's the vision. But then we got to peel back that onion and understand why, who's going to be a part of it, right? Because the people who are going to build the fence may like the view and they don't want a fence, right? But the vision is simply what it is out there that we're trying to get accomplished, that we need to bring everybody together on board so that from this post to the very end post, we can get from here to there and everybody knows why we're doing it. Right?
I like that. I think that's a important piece of it is the why is, with your fence analogy, explaining why the fence is necessary, I think is part of communicating the vision of building a fence, right? It's not just, and I think maybe some companies are falling into the trap of not, they're way focused, we talked about it earlier, focused on the what. We need to build a fence and then communicating the details of what we're building, right? It needs to be 8 feet tall. It needs to be a privacy fence, so no gaps in between the whatever. It needs to have a gate here, whatever. But they don't really take a lot of time and focus in on, well, why do we need a fence in the first place? But I think that you're absolutely right in that the why we need a fence in the first place is one of the key pieces of communicating that vision, of understanding what that vision is. Like we're trying to, what problem are we trying to solve? And so no, I think that's a really a really great point. So we're kind of coming close to the end, and so I want to finish up and kind of bring us back to what we were talking about originally, AI and change management. So what are, you don't have to answer if you want, but I like to put people on the spot. What are some of the most frustrating things that you're hearing and dealing with, talking to clients and prospective clients, talking about digital transformation, change management, and the inclusion of AI into their business?
Yeah, I would say that one of the most frustrating things is just how we conceptualize things, how we literally look over people and look at the technologies. And it's, I wouldn't say it's frustrating, yes, but I've seen it so much. I understand why it's so easy for people, but it's everybody wants to talk about the AI and the technology, but we are looking way past and we're looking over the people who are going to be involved in it. And it's the very first step of what they're doing that I can see that is already going to just cause multiple issues throughout that organization, right? And so it's what do the people think, right? If I told you like, hey, starting next week on Wednesdays, I want you to wear blue shirts every week, right? What's the first question you're going to ask?
Why blue shirts?
Why? Why would I do that? Um, but if that's my goal, if that's the vision that we're trying to get the organization to, whatever, I got to include you. I got to let you know why are we doing what we're doing. And so that's one of the most frustrating things. It's great to talk about the cool AI, the technology, and all that, but you got to think about your people first, and then start from your people outward. People, process, then technologies. But if you skip those first two, you're probably in for a long year.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the year where those technologies are so attractive to businesses. They're in the news cycle constantly, and so I think that that's a great place to leave it on. Is that as interesting and as cool as all of these new technologies are, that really it starts with the people, your employees and your customers. Like what are they saying to you? What are your employees saying to you? And if you're not starting there, then your project is probably destined to fail. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping it up now. Are there any closing thoughts that you have on this topic of digital transformation?
No, I think that we kind of touched on it, which is just that people first approach. It's easy to get caught up in technologies because technologies don't have emotions and they don't argue with you, and you can just go try to put technology to work. People are much more complicated, and it's natural to choose the technology over the people. But the reality is you need the people to implement the technology. And so you just got to remember, people have emotions, people have feelings. You got to navigate those waters, and then you can get to the technology.
Amazing. A great place to stop. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks Brent for joining us this week. Join us again next time for the next episode of the SEQTEK podcast. Hopefully we'll have Matt back. But if not, then we can continue onward and you can have me. Everyone, we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks.